Yeah, this is nice. I feel like this is nice Maine summer weather. The nice little cool breeze, the sun. Today was really perfect. I could go for this 6 months out of the year at least.
So Audra has us streaming now.
Wouldn't that be nice? If you could figure that one out, Jenna.
Well, the way we're going, stuff, you never know what's going to happen.
True.
With the weather.
Interesting. Interesting. Taylor, is your boat in the water yet? Oh, missed him. Taylor, is your boat in the water yet? Taylor?
Yes.
Is your boat in the water yet?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. Sorry. Whoops.
Not yet. Not yet. I was really proud of myself for realizing that I needed to do some engine work.
Yeah.
But I think I should have embraced the idea that if it's not broke, don't fix it. So yeah,
I know that feeling.
I'm learning as I go and staying optimistic.
That's good, boy.
I found a brass screw sitting in my carburetor.
You found a what?
I found a brass plug sitting in the base of one of my carburetors. I don't know how it didn't go through the motor all last year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what happened.
Wow.
It's a new boat to me, Randy. So I drained the oil out about 6 weeks ago to put it in, and I found some big chunks of metal in the oil. So I thought, well, I better figure out where that came from. So I've successfully taken the engine completely apart, but I have yet to put it back together.
Those are good winter projects.
That's right. That's right.
That's where I made my mistake. I should have done this in like November, not March.
Good point.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. If it ain't broke, don't fix it thing. Sometimes we try to get too clever and we wind up with 3 months of agony.
Yeah,
especially with boats.
I'll tell you, it's a mistake that I won't be making a second time. I think I should have. I'm hoping that by the end of the month I'll have it in. So, I'm knocking on wood and staying at it.
Well, if you want to borrow a British car to make you feel better, just let me know.
Thanks, Jenna. I appreciate the support.
Hi, Mark.
Solidarity.
Hi, Allison.
Hi.
Just so you all know, we are we're live streaming at the moment, so just don't want to catch you off guard.
Thanks.
Sure.
But I'm always happy to have the platform to broadcast my views out to the world. So just get started with my pregame show here.
There you go. Why not?
Actually, what I'm going to do is pull up some other things.
Mm-hmm.
Finish preparing. I'm trying the stand-up desk mode this evening to see if that helps me get through it. I just had a couple hours of a Zoom meeting and not really feeling like sitting still right now. It may make it worse. I may start like walking back and forth, and then I'll have to stop and sit down.
Turn off the video for a few minutes at a time and do whatever.
Right. I see other people do that, and I always wonder what they're doing. So, yeah, I prefer to just go out of the frame if I have to.
Or you could just be the man behind the curtain or woman behind the curtain.
Yeah, right. You could do that too. Just have your hand sticking through the curtain.
Yeah.
Really?
Hey, Holly. I believe Audra is turning on the cable. What time do we have anyway? Oh, it's 6:30. Mark, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you just fine. Do I want to hear you? That's the
I
question.
didn't ask you that.
Oh, I see.
I would be afraid of the answer. What's that old thing about don't ask a question you don't want the answer to?
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely.
Is Ms. Jody. Hey, Jody.
Hello.
In case any of the public's listening, we're just waiting to get the cable channel hooked up also. Hmm.
Has anybody else been attending the Build Maine virtual conference? I see one hand out there.
Yeah,
Jeremy.
they were great.
It's really great. Did you see? I was just looking through the program, and it's and Mark Siegenthaler and Audra are in the program from
Yeah.
last year. It's really great stuff. I get excited.
It is. And I really like the guy from Stronger, is it Stronger Towns out in Brainerd, Minnesota?
Strong Towns, yeah.
Strong Towns. Yeah. What an awesome.
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah.
I've been a little bit behind not doing the live stuff, but I follow Strong Towns on Facebook,
Yeah.
and there's
Really
so much stuff about parking, and it just makes so much sense.
It does. For sure. I agree. We should talk about that stuff moving forward.
We should just hijack this whole meeting and just start sharing graphics and brainstorming. Get our chalk out.
Are we set, Audra?
Bob will love it.
It's live on YouTube.
Just have a vision board.
Here you go. Audra, we all set to go? You're muted.
Are you screen sharing, Bob?
No.
Okay, sorry. Something weird is going on.
Probably in speaker view. I am too, actually.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
I'm,
All right.
it all looks normal to me.
All right, good now. I
That's all
figured.
that matters.
All right. Let's call to order the select board, Camden Select Board meeting for July 7th, 2020 already. Addressing our agenda, item 1, any public input on non-agenda items. I'm not aware of any, Audra, on non-agenda items. Is that correct?
Correct.
Ollie has a hand up.
I'm sorry.
I do have something that's not on the agenda. We received the money from the Ragged Mountain Ski Club
Right.
for the grant request.
Mhm.
And they have given us an additional $8,000 as a way of helping the Snow Bowl with what they know is going to be, or they assume is going to be, a budget shortfall. So they voted as a board last week to give us $25,000 total. The grant itself was $16,824. So they awarded us an additional $81.76.
Great. In their letter, just to be clear, they're allocating that to fiscal 1920. Is that correct?
Budget
Jody.
shortfalls due to that's to assist with budget shortfalls due to,
Past year.
it's COVID stuff, but none of that really impacts the 1920 season. So,
Right. This is retroactive funding to last winter.
right, exactly.
It always
Yep.
goes like this. So I was surprised to see the 1920 confused 2019, 2020. I just want to clarify that.
Right, yep. Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. That's great news.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. Item 2 is the approval of the board minutes from June 16, 2020. Any comments on the minutes? Mark?
I have one correction. We were talking about, let me find my notes. We were talking about in our discussions in the beginning, in the spot where it says, I said short-term or long-term money. And it should say short-term over long-term. The word over should replace the word or.
Okay, Mark, what paragraph is that in? Just to be
That
roughly,
is-
so that when they look at it, they can find it.
Yeah, hold on, I will find it.
Thank you, sir.
It's in the let's see here. It's in the middle of the select board reports.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other comments from anybody else? Do you have a motion for acceptance with one correction?
I'll make so moved.
Second,
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Jenna.
I wasn't there, so
Oh, thank
I
you,
don't
Jenna.
think so.
Thank you for reminding me. Thank you. Sorry.
thank you.
Allison,
aye.
Bob, aye. 401, I guess it is, with one not voting. Item 3, we have our select board reports normally, and before we get into individual reports, we should start off with first an announcement that as of tomorrow, the annual town report will be available for people to pick up at the town offices. And with the wonderful photography work that some of you all worked so hard on, I'm looking at the ones that did it. And but as part of that, we are very proud to announce that this year's annual report is dedicated to the Camden Area District Nursing Association. On the back cover, it has a great photo, some great photos. I don't want to steal all the thunder of the woman who originally started, Ms. Mary Annis. And the dedication reads, the report is dedicated to the Camden Area District Nursing Association, the compassionate women who initially formed it, countless volunteers, donors, and dedicated nurses who have sustained it for the past 100 years. There is just a great 2-page article in this document that was provided us principally by Barbara Dyer. Thank you, Barbara. It's a great chronology of 100 years of what they have contributed to the area towns since 1920. In October, it will be their 100th anniversary. She does a great job of giving us chronicling the history from when, well, thank you so much, from when Ms. Annis, whose picture here is on the left, started, Ms. Mary Annis started in October 10th, 1920, up to today when Ms. Judith Leiden is currently the director. They started out at the Chestnut Ave YMCA and wants to the Thunderbirds today at Quarry Hill. It's just given where we are at today with the challenges of the world, not the least of which is a pandemic virus situation. We could think of nothing better but to thank many entities who are involved in helping us, public safety, and not the least of which is the healthcare professionals who are risking a lot just to keep us healthy. So you got to get a copy of one of these things, one of these annual reports, and take a read of those 2 paragraphs. It's extremely interesting, and it just makes all of us more proud to be in this great town where things start and seem to never die, thank God. Is there anybody else from the select board want to make a comment, because you were all involved in this, and Audra? Please feel free to do so, but we're excited to get it out. Thank you very much. Now, if there's nothing else on that, again, they're available tomorrow to be picked up at our town offices. Now to select board reports. Allison, you want to start?
Sure. I have been trying to participate as much as I can in the Build Maine conference that a lot of us went to in person last year, and Audra was the moderator for that. And this year, as all the rest of us, they are adapting and trying to do as much as possible virtually. The town is a sponsor of this, so the follow-up materials are also accessible for town board staff and committee members. If you want to anybody wants to take a look at the program that they have on Build Maine, it's let's see here, build-maine.com. But as was the case last year, where a lot of us left really kind of excited about the different ideas that were put forward, it's really exciting again this year. And a lot of it, one thing that has really drawn my attention is this idea of tactical urbanism, which they're kind of short-term, sometimes experimental and citizen-driven changes to the environment, whether it be putting up a picnic table in the middle of a parking lot, or putting some cones out to experiment with making an area for pedestrians rather than for just cars. And the idea is that a lot of the time citizens will bring these ideas forward. They'll paint the sidewalk, they'll do a mural somewhere. Even just in Camden, you see this, like a lot of people are painting rocks and placing them around town. So there's sort of this innate drive that most citizens have to kind of try to make their environment a little bit more community driven and adaptable. And it's an exciting opportunity right now with coronavirus that it's kind of forcing us all to adapt and be a little bit more creative, and maybe not be so scared of change, because we can kind of at this point say, okay, well, we're doing this as an experiment to see if it helps this given situation. And so I would just encourage everybody to Google tactical urbanism and look at some ideas that are happening all over the country, everything from bike lanes to more just like artistic things. And for people to come to us with ideas, the town can't do everything, But a lot of the time we're in a position to say yes to ideas that come up. And so there's a lot of great stuff in this program, a lot of it about just the logic and philosophy of parking ordinances and some of these things that we've kind of grown to think, oh, well, you always need to have adequate parking. And what does adequate parking mean? And, you know, if we don't have parking here, then the downtown will fail. And it's been really useful for me to kind of challenge some of my preconceived notions and see what's working well in other places. And so, yeah, that's basically my report. Oh, just one other thing. Everybody, there were no fireworks this week, but what was really exciting for anybody that was down at the harbor, and that continues to be, is there are probably more fish than have ever been in the harbor, or maybe back before we changed the sewer treatment plant. I do hear stories of how things used to be before I was around, but even really seasoned fishermen are down there saying, oh my gosh, whoa, what's that? You know, my kids caught a striped bass, there are blueback herring everywhere, pogies jumping out of the water, there have been seals. Some people have been speculating, well, maybe that's because of a little bit of reduced boat traffic. I really don't know, but check it out. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Elsa. That was great. Mark?
I have a number of things, of course. I seem to always do. Some questions for maybe mostly for Audra or comments to the board. In the news this week, Thomaston just put up 2 electric car chargers, which were available through an Efficiency Maine grant. And it's something I've been interested in Camden having. We have the new parking lot up on Knowlton Street. And I'd like to know what we can do to put in some car chargers of our own. The article, I think in Penn Bay Pilot, described you know, the different kinds you can put in. And I think it'd be a very important thing. So I just wanted to plant that seed for maybe Audra and Jeremy to investigate. That's number one. Number two, the news story today about Portland, the city of Portland, let me bring it up, is doing, they got some federal funding from the CARES Act, and they're doing rent assistance.
Right.
And I don't know what monies we got from the CARES Act, what we have available, maybe some of our funds that we have available to provide some rent assistance, maybe put it out there that you know, it's something we can provide to help people in these troubling times. So anybody have a comment about that, Audra or Jeremy?
I would say that the funding that we've received recently couldn't be used for that purpose.
Okay.
The larger municipalities were directly granted funds that unfortunately smaller municipalities such as us were not. So we don't have access to funds that we could use for rent assistance.
Thanks, Audra.
Okay.
Anything else, Mark?
Because I've also been mentioning the last couple of weeks, latest medical advice or movements on COVID-19. One of the things that came out yesterday, over 200 scientists have requested that the World Health Organization acknowledge that the virus is available as an aerosol when it's in the air. It's not just droplets that fall to the floor, but it is traveling as an aerosol, which makes it more dangerous and makes the use of masks even more important. I just wanted to mention that. And the other thing that I came upon last week, and it's been coming for a while, is that when you are cured, if you are unfortunate enough to go to the hospital and lucky enough to survive and go home, you are not totally cured. They're finding out that people have long-term effects from this virus that people have never seen before from this. It is not, again, I say it every week, it's not the flu. And there's something very serious going on. So the use of masks is very important. And as I say it every week, the use of masks is your support for all the other people in the world. It's for all the people you know, all the people you care about, all the people you love, people you don't. That's why it's so important. So I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention next week, next Tuesday is a voting day. You have, I think, 2 days left to, if you've gotten an absentee ballot, it has to be back in the mail by the 9th, I believe. So if you've gotten that and you're not going to bring it back to the town office, please mail it in the next day or so, because that's the limit for that. And I've heard that we've had an unparalleled success in getting the absentee ballots up, more requests than ever before. Town staff has been working incredibly hard to work on that. And so thanks to them. Please do your voting. The one thing I wanted to mention about that is, in my own personal thing, I think the budget, for the first time, the entire town is voting on the entire town budget, not just at the town meeting. And I think it's really important. It gives us a basis to work from. It is down from last year's. Even though the budget was prepared before COVID hit, it is down, I think, 1.72% from last year's budget. And we will continue to look as things develop. If we need to reduce things even more, we will work on that. I think the one place, if I were to err in any way, I'm always erring on the position of saving jobs, because that's most important. That'll keep our economy growing. So those are my contributions to the budget. And lastly, there are 2 positions up next year for the select board next week. And so this will be the last official meeting of this particular board, although in my hopes that when we meet in 2 weeks, it will be the same people, but it will be the next generation of the board. But I would like to thank the other 4 people that I've been working with. I think this has been an incredible, wonderful opportunity for all of us. I think we've done great things for the town, very progressive, very looking forward. And it's been a pleasure working with all of you. And I hope to continue that for the next bunch of years. So thank you to all.
Thank you very much, Mark. Ms. Jenna, Jody, you raised your hand.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just want to piggyback on Mark's comments about the ballots. Thursday at the close of business is when we will cease taking absentee applications over the phone and online. So they would need to come in, and we will accept ballots through until 8 p.m. on Tuesday. We'll accept absentee ballots. So you can still bring them to the fire station, but 8 p.m. is the cutoff time.
Yeah, but the one thing I do, if you're going to mail them back, they have to be mailed, I believe, by Friday. That's
I think that's just a lead time thing to make sure it arrives by.
Yeah, that date is somewhere in some rules I read somewhere.
You're probably right. They just want to make sure you have to be received by 8 p.m. on Tuesday, the 14th, correct?
Right.
Yeah, good.
How does that work I actually forgot to, thank you for bringing this whole issue up, because I haven't known how to answer that when people say, when do they have to send it by? Do we just not, how do we handle that? It just has to come to us and it's up to everybody else to figure out when they need to send it by? Or does the post office provide some kind of recommendation?
I think what Mark was talking about is there was a recommendation to get it in the mail by Thursday. Right. The mail is so quirky these days that even if it is delayed, we can't accept it the next day. We don't accept postmarks on Wednesday for those. Right. So.
And that's a good point, Allison. Good question, because a lot of people think that because they drop something at the Camden post office, it arrives immediately the next day. It doesn't, because all mail everywhere goes through a central mail facility somewhere in the state and then is disseminated out. So to the point Jody made, yeah, they're recommending mailing by the 9th if you want to mail it, but you could drop it off until 8 p.m. At the polls on the 14th.
Okay, so you all just check and see. The mail comes on Tuesday, and the stuff that's in there is in there, and if not, then not.
Yeah, at the close of business on Tuesday, all ballots will be down at the fire station.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, that's that good question, though. Ms. Jenna.
Pretty much everything that I had prepared echoes what Mark said. And something I want to add is I really have heard some very good things about the efficacy of the signage downtown with regard to masking and safety protocols with COVID. So that's very encouraging. People are really enjoying the picnic tables. And I saw what I felt was some really impressive, responsible behavior when I came through town over the weekend a couple of times. I've heard that it, you know, obviously it was a non-traditional 4th of July weekend, but from what I have heard, it was a passable and good weekend as far as times go right now. I also want to just briefly speak to the fact that I have covered this board as a reporter. My father served on this board, and I am so honored to serve on this board with the 4 other members that I sit with now. And I will be proudly casting my votes for Bob and Allison. And I very much hope to be here with all of you and be back in the conference room with all of you again for next meeting. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Jenna. Anything else? Jenna?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Mr. Benzee. Mr. Benzee.
Thank you, Bob. I don't really have anything new to report. I'll kind of echo what Mark and Jenna have said about social distancing, and particularly on the holiday weekend, and an observation that I made this weekend that did make me happy with the way that I think things are going. And I think it goes without saying and can't be repeated enough that wearing masks is a relatively easy thing to do, albeit frustrating at times. Masks do work, and if everyone's diligent about that, it makes it easier for us to be out in public. I spent the weekend actually in a northern Maine town, a relatively popular place on a holiday weekend, and masks were rare this weekend up there. I saw very few people wearing masks. And I was pleased when I drove back into town on Monday afternoon, it was on a Monday, and everybody had a mask on the sidewalks going in and out of stores when I was in town. Occasionally you'd see someone without a mask, but I find that they'd be having it in their pocket or they were hanging on to it. It seemed like they were just getting some fresh air while they were outside. So that was encouraging. And I think, you know, my message is just keep it up. It's frustrating at times, but it's a basic thing that we can do to make things easier for us, and masks do work. So I was pleased to see that and hope we can keep it up. And I'll echo again, my pleasure of working with everybody on this board, and in particular Allison and Bob. And I look forward to hopefully continuing to work with all of you, including Allison and Bob, after the elections.
Thank you, Taylor. From my perspective, just a couple of notes. One, I do a couple of MDOT related issues. One is they did get bids last week for, and Audrey can correct me here, but for the I call it the stop and go to Sea Dog drainage project on Route 1. One a big disparity in the 2 bids, but one bid is within the budget, but that doesn't confirm that it's a bid to be. They have to still review the unit cost and that kind of thing. But if that project is approved and goes ahead, it looks like it will start around October and required to be finished by late next spring, if assuming it goes ahead. That's one. 2, they are rebidding, in the process of rebidding the Route 1 North project. I'll be interested. I don't have any data on that, but we'll keep people posted on what may be coming back through the process on that one. Obviously a much bigger job, and also a more than 2-year project. Anyway, that's about it from my perspective. With that, we'll move on to the item 4, which is the approval of Vittler and lodging licenses for the Birchwood Lodge and Farmette, Camden Deli, the Lodge at Camden Hills, the Smoothie Shack, and Uncle Willie's Candy Shop. I love it. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the following victular license and lodging licenses: Birchwood Lodge and Farmette, Camden Deli, the Lodge at Camden Hills, the Smoothie Shack, and Uncle Willie's Candy Shop.
Second.
Was there a discussion? I saw your hand go up, Taylor. Do you want to have a discussion on this item?
No, I was going to make the same motion Mark did.
Okay. Allison, you had your hand up.
I was just going to note that we received a letter from Jenny Simon of.
Yes, yeah, that relates to the item on Route 52.
Well, it relates to both
Okay,
thing. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong.
I get it. I thought she did write a letter. I was going to read it on item 10, but I'm happy to read it now.
I mean, it's fine because her thing isn't in danger of
No,
not being approved. So
no, but yeah, good point.
you can read the whole thing then, I suppose.
I think it'd be easier. With that said, I'll go for roll call vote. Taylor,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Allison,
Aye.
Jenna,
Aye.
Bob, I also 5-0. Thank you very much. The fifth item is we have requested approval of the application of Bay Chamber Concerts for the use of the Village Green, which is in your packet. Are there any comments or discussion before we move to move to motion or not?
I just
I'll
have
make
one
a
other
motion.
Village Green related
Go
thing
ahead.
after we vote on that.
Okay, Taylor,
I was going to give you your motion.
go ahead.
Move that we approve the Village Green use application for Bay Chamber Concerts.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Allison? Did you nothing? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, not about this.
Okay, cool. Roll call vote. Mark,
Aye.
Taylor? Taylor? I'll come back to Jenna.
Aye.
Aye.
I heard Taylor's aye. Allison?
Aye.
Aye.
And Bob, I also 5-0. Thank you very, very much. The item 6 was
Okay, so sorry. Here's the,
what Allison?
so
Sorry.
this is the Village Green use thing that I'm trying to just interject because, there is that gray area between what requires official select board approval and what doesn't, and whether there's, a lot of it has to do with, I think, whether there's setup of materials and things like that. But we did receive one inquiry from somebody from Joanna Spinks just wanting to let us know or let the town know or anybody who's interested, I suppose, that they're having, she's having, or somebody, there will be a conversation that is being called a public discussion on racial justice and police reform, making changes at a local level, Thursday, July 9th at 6 p.m. Some people are going to gather to talk about that. And I think she was anticipating around 20 or 30 people. It does seem like any event associated or with this movement is actually tending to draw a whole lot more people than expected. I went to one of those events over the weekend and there were a whole lot of people there. I also think the police department did a really great job with kind of facilitating that. I heard nothing but positive remarks about how helpful you all were, Randy and crew. So thank you for that. But yeah, just a small note on that sort of event, non-event that is happening on the 9th.
Thank you, Allison. Item 6 would be discussion about to approve determining a location for an open air market. I like to call it a flea market, but open air market's another term. So I want to open the floor up for discussion on this matter. I forget who was the person that led. Jeremy, did you raise your hand?
Well, I don't know.
Bob, I
if you
read
want me to-
Jeremy's letter about.
What? Jeremy, did you raise your hand? I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to give a little
I do.
what
Yeah,
transpired here.
Yes, please.
Okay. So Janelle Pendleton, the owner of Barefoot and Denim, reached out to me about what the town could do. She unfortunately had to vacate her location due to COVID. She reached out and asked if the town had any location where she could set up a boutique trailer of sorts, so she could take her retail shop on the road. And she wants to stay in Camden. She has, I guess, a very active Facebook page, reached out to her customers, and she asked where they could see her at or would like her to be, and they all said she wanted her to stay in Camden. Her future is to get back into a retail storefront in Camden, but due to this issue, COVID stuff, she needed a different location. So myself and some other town staff started talking about this and where we could do this. We do have the ability under the hawking and peddling ordinance that was approved a number of years ago to approve an event like this. And, you know, rather than it being a one retailer or one business kind of thing, we really thought about the event aspect because that's what the hawking and peddling ordinance addresses. So we thought we'd open it up to other interested businesses to do the same thing. I have not actually heard, and this is all brand new. This all came up at the tail end of last week. I will say that Randy and I think we'll probably talk about it later if it's on the agenda, about the COVID response that we've been doing. Randy and I today were downtown and we visited every downtown business on Main Street on both sides of the road. Tomorrow we're going to go meet with some other businesses on Elm and Bayview and just chat with them about how things are going for their businesses, how their customers and people are reacting to the face masks, if they need help, if they need any assistance. Everyone was so thankful and supportive of us being out there meeting with folks. And I will say, I've mentioned this to other downtown merchants and some were very interested in taking part in something like this. So the idea is to have this happen. And it's, you know, we are thinking about locations and we can think about the Tannery as a good location. You know, that's obviously being used on Wednesdays and Saturdays for the farmers market. It draws a fair amount of people and traffic. I know some people are concerned with traffic there, but it all works. And it is a neat event, the farmers market. And this is just another thing that we could do. We also thought about the public landing as an option. We can move this around too. We don't know if it's going to take off or if, you know, many more businesses are going to want to join in. But initially we were thinking of the Tannery. Janelle actually thought of the parking lot below the teen center, but there's not a lot of visibility there. So I suggested the Tannery and you know, would work great for her and for them. And it could be a neat thing.
Just to be clear.
Jeremy, a question?
Just a second, just to be clear, so everybody has an idea. We're not talking about a week-long event. We're talking about one day a week kind of a thing.
Correct. And the idea is for it would be on one day, Friday from 11 to 4. And Janelle requested for 8 weeks and just to see how it goes was the idea. And it is a town function and she has to get a license. You know, she has to sign a license agreement with us. She's got to carry insurance and all that stuff. So we have the ability to have some provisions within that document to protect us and for whatever reason. So.
Okay.
About 8 weeks from 11 to 4.
Okay, Mark.
Jeremy, in her original letter that you included in the packet, she had talked about the parking lot at Knowlton. Have you talked to her about the Tannery? Have you told her about that? Is she happy with that?
Happy with that. I did mention to her in an email today, potentially the landing. I think she's going to be happy with whatever location. I think other businesses as well. What I don't want to do, I mean, it may be hard to get other existing retailers downtown to go to the landing because they already have, you know, employees and their stuff in their store. They may prefer the Tannery if it's an option. So I think we can be flexible about this. I will say that the ordinance does say, the hawking peddling ordinance does say that the select board or their designee can approve this. I think based on your thoughts and what we think would be best, I think Audra or myself I prefer Audra can approve this kind of event, whether we decide it's going to be the Tannery in the end or could be at the landing for the initial couple of weeks. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's just trying to keep it open.
I like that. I'd like, Bob, let me follow up on what I was saying. I read the letter. I thought about the Tannery. I think the Tannery is a great location, better than the landing for a couple of reasons. Number one, parking at the landing is already taken up. You know, we would lose parking spaces downtown. I don't think our vendors would like that. But the Tannery has already proven to be a very successful place for people to go. There is parking, there is access, there's a great location. You could spread out a bunch of different trailers as the farmers market people do. So it's already got an established sort of place to be. And I think it would work really well. And again, bring people out of town. I think it's a tremendous idea. I think it would work well. I would love to see it and see other people join her because it's a great use of that land that's right now only used on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Taylor, you're muted, Taylor.
Sorry about that. I love the idea. I was happy when I read Janelle's email and Jeremy's memo about this. You know, I think in a general sense, if there's any businesses that have a reasonable request of the town to help them right now, in my opinion, we should do whatever we can. And this seems like something that's relatively simple for us to do to be able to help facilitate them doing more business in a safe way. I also think that's just a fun idea in general. And if it's successful, maybe it turns into something more permanent. Who knows? So I'm totally supportive, and thank you, Jeremy, for working out the logistics.
Ms. Allison.
I am so excited about this, and also hoping that we would try to be kind of as put as few criteria on the type of vendor that can be there as possible. I mean, we have one great thing that we have, and I know we're not in the position on the select board of dictating who's in charge of this or that, but Holly has so much experience just with all these types of events and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So I think that's the town and especially Holly have really shown over the years that we can figure out how to do these things and include lots of different types of vendors, whether it be food trucks or, you know, artists, or, you know, maybe it's just Joe Schmo who wants to sell the earrings, or a nonprofit organization that wants to talk about what they're doing. And obviously we would make sure like the same rules would apply to our other public spaces, that this would be like a kind of a masked event. But I'm really excited about it. I think the tannery is a great place because we don't have to, it can just be allowed to kind of evolve without it having to push something else out. That always is a larger discussion with the public landing. I mean, I wanted the farmers market to be on the public landing for a few weeks. And we thought that was like a great offer from the select board, but it's not always met with the enthusiasm that we expect. So I'd prefer at this point to keep it to the tannery, and thanks for doing this, Jeremy, and whoever else.
And Holly, that's why she's here too.
Yeah,
we'll get to Holly.
Perfect. Perfect.
I'm not sure that we would have the expertise. Like if we didn't have Holly, I'd be a little bit like, I don't know if the town can do it, but.
You can.
Ms. Jenna, do you have anything that you want to add?
I will add, I think that this is a wonderful, wonderful idea. I hesitate to call it novel, but I think it's really special for the town. I think people love this kind of thing. I think it will encourage kind of walking and using that sidewalk on Washington Street to come from downtown and sort of expand the downtown experience a little bit for people, which right now I think is great. I think people really, it's great for social distancing. It's great for our businesses. And I second everyone else in that I think that it's really important that we do everything we can to safely support our businesses to get through this crisis. And I think this is one way to do it. And also, again, offering a platform for other vendors potentially as well. So I'm thrilled by this. I love the grassroots nature of it. And I think Janelle runs a great business, and I really hope that others will join. So I am very excited about this as well.
Great, thanks, Jenna. I would have to agree with everything that's been said. I think I think it's just started opening one door to a bigger house. As Allison alluded to, I think this is the kind of thing that Camden needs. It adds to the vibrancy of the town, not the least of which, of course, is the situation that occurred because of the virus, where a business is having some challenges, but that precipitated the idea. I think it's great. I hope it does morph into something that's just grows. But what I think we're looking at right now and talking about right now is, and I agree with the tannery, by the way, also. I think the landing is just, we put benches down there, we've taken up a few parking spaces, and I'm a little cautious during this COVID thing to put too much load downtown. But to Jeremy's point, we can always move it around. That's an option. But what specifically do you need from the select board tonight? Audra, Jeremy, 1 second. Mark.
I would keep it as approval for an open air market at the tannery, and then we'll work out all the details.
Yeah, I know the details would be, by the way, just specificity for the initial 8 weeks, and the keyword initial. All right, Mark, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to make a motion that we approve an open air market at the tannery and authorize Audra to work with the specific town employees to get it established and accomplished.
Second.
Everybody jumps in, I love it. Discussion? Not hearing any. Roll call vote to Ms. Jenna first.
Aye, enthusiastically aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Allison.
Aye.
Mark.
Absolutely, aye.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Absolutely. That's 5-0. Thanks so much. It's exciting. Interesting where this thing goes. Item 7 is on our agenda is the approval of the Personnel Board's recommended amendments to our town personnel policy. First question I want to ask is there's more changes in there than I thought in that package. Is the select board prepared to discuss it at this point in time? Allison.
I definitely have some questions. I was like, oh my, okay. So I don't know if, like, how long it's going to take to answer my questions. I was a little alarmed by the sick leave bank that is being established. But maybe my questions will go quickly, but that was a little bit heavy to get through with no real like explanation.
Yeah, I was thinking, that's why I asked the question the way I did, and I'm not dictating, of course, but there was a lot in there. And when I read it through yesterday, I said, wow, a lot of things that to digest.
I would add that there's really nothing urgent at all. So if all of you are feeling the same way that, you know, there's a lot to it and you would like more explanation or you'd like to ask questions, you know, there's no rush at all to approve this. So I feel completely comfortable however you want to handle it. If you want to ask some questions tonight and Jody and I are here to answer, or if you need more time to digest and want to ask questions.
Well, I think what the changes that are in there, of course, they're written and the way they have to be written, but maybe a little explanation for the board as to why each major change is being made. What's the basis behind it? Oftentimes these things from my experience have been because, well, you know, that's the way the law is today, for example. Or this is just catching up with where everything is in 2020 kind of thing. But I don't know, I'm open to whatever the select board wants to do. We want to discuss it tonight, that's fine. But wait a second, Jeremy got himself disconnected. Hold on, there we go. Or we can table it until the 21st. It's up to it's our call.
I have a few questions myself. I feel fairly comfortable with most of things, but it is more than I had remembered was initially talked about. So if it's not urgent, maybe I'd like to put some things in writing, maybe send it to Audra to get some clarity on would be helpful. Yeah. But I'm open to whatever everyone wants to do.
Taylor, I'm the same place you are.
I am as well.
What? I'm sorry, Allison?
Sorry, it's Jenna. I am in the same place as the two of you as well.
Okay. Well, I suggest we table this item and we get questions to Audra, because I have a few, that we can get answered between now and the 21st, whoever is on the select board at that point in time.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Mark? And I think
I had one specific question, but we can start.
Go ahead.
Just fine.
It's up to you. I have a bunch of questions, and I just thought it'd be easy.
I have one thing that I wanted to bring up that you know, because I always tend to be on the side of employees, and the one thing I noticed for new employees, they have to work a year. You know, they have a probation period, but they have to work a year until they get vacation. And I've always felt that was, I know a lot of other companies, I always felt that was unfair. I'd like to see it's 6 months. They get, if they make through the first 6 months, they get a week to doing that period, because working for a whole year without any time off is a
Well,
really tough way to start
Why don't
something.
you, we, the three of us obviously talked about tabling it. Why don't you put those questions on a email and send it to Audra and / Jody? And so we can address all of our questions on the 21st. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, that's probably smart because it was more substantial than I thought it was intended to be. I got a little off guard myself.
I'm so glad you said that because I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
I should have asked questions earlier, so.
Well, when Audra, if she mentioned it today that it wasn't urgent, the first thought that came to my head was I just want to chew on it a little bit more. Or again, I believe it's also a good idea to have the next select board on the 24th first discussing.
I can also write up, you know, I'll of course take questions from all of you, but I'll also write up a background memo.
Yes,
Yes. You know, there are some, it's not always, you know, there was an evolution from who brought the change forward to the discussion the personnel board had. So I'd be more than happy to write a memo kind of explaining some of that, and that could be helpful.
That would be very helpful. It may stunt some of the questions that I probably have. I think it's a great idea. How come I get two pictures of Jeremy here? What are you doing, Jeremy? You're muted, Jeremy.
In both.
One of the Jeremys is muted.
I know, but you can see the image in both of them, and but they're different.
Jeremy, unmute.
Speak, Jeremy.
Which Jeremy?
Jeremy, one of you is enough.
Jeremy,
I'm sorry. I have to leave this one spot for a moment. So it's me on my other device.
I thought I was seeing things. You don't play tricks on me. But anyway, this is tough enough as it is. But all right, thanks. We'll do that, Audra. We'll see that memo. And I think it's a great idea. Any explanations, but it'll stunt some percentage of the questions. Item 8 is.
Do we need an official motion to table?
Yes, yes.
I would motion to table the discussion of changes to the personnel policy for the meeting on July 21st of the Camden Select Board.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call vote. Jenna?
Aye.
Taylor?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Bob, aye, also 5-0. Thank you for that, Jenna. Item 8 is the participation in the High Watermark Initiative. Do you want to lead that discussion, Audra?
Yes, so this is a program that is offered through FEMA, and it really gives, it's a good awareness raising tool, and it does lead to some projects for communities with properties that are in the floodplain. And I've reached out to Nathan Robbins from Maine DEP, who's involved in this program. He's part of the Silver Jackets, and that's a group through FEMA that does a lot of climate change resiliency work. So, we'd been talking with Shri Verrill from Midcoast Conservancy, who we're working with on the Maguntacook River Restoration Project, and she mentioned that this fits in very well with a lot of Camden's goals around climate change resiliency and sea level rise. And I just think it's a great project for us to be involved in. It fits in with the Covenant of Mayors work that we're doing, and just general preparedness for climate change and the impacts of that. So just wanted to bring that forward to the board, give you the opportunity to, weigh in on participating.
Okay. Anybody want to make a comment on the select board about the package, what's in our packet for this initiative? Seems like a fairly straightforward to me.
Yeah, it makes all the sense in the world.
It does. Yeah.
Not just FEMA, but the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEP, and
yep.
We've got all kinds of identified hotspots, not just the ones we've been talking about, but properties like the yacht club, which we oftentimes forget that we even own as a town. So lots of fits in even with some of the breakwater discussions or
yep.
Lots of it.
Audra, what do you need from us?
I think that, just formal approval to participate from the select board, it's just as much about, all of you giving the opportunity to communicate to the community that a lot of the work that we talked about around climate change resiliency and flood preparedness, something that you're supporting and you're participating in ongoing efforts to address those issues. So that's really, our goal of bringing this forward to all of you.
Got it.
Okay.
Mark?
I'll make a motion that the town of Camden participate in the High Water Mark Initiative.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? I'm not hearing any. We will go for roll call vote. For Jenna,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Allison,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
and Bob, aye, 5-0. Thank you very much. Item 9 is the update, Audra, on the Keep Maine Healthy grant.
All right, so the select board knows this, but for those out there who aren't aware, the town of Camden was awarded a grant for $102,000 as part of the Keep Me Healthy program. This is awarded through the Maine CDC, and it's all focused on safely reopening economies in the face of the COVID-19. So we're fortunate that we received quite a sizable grant, and a lot of this funding can be used for a number of different purposes to assist businesses and try and make sure that while they're reopening and we're salvaging some of the the high season, we're also keeping people safe. We've already started spending this money, so everything from June 8th forward is reimbursable. So things like the awesome signage on the lampposts that Jeremy and Holly coordinated is a reimbursable expense. Other efforts that the staff have been talking about, like the open air market, all of the work that'll go into that project will be reimbursable through Keep Me Healthy. Time on behalf of staff members, Beth and Holly are really stepping up, and they're doing a lot of work to, try and help Jeremy make the town a more vibrant place in the face of, everything that's going on and the limitations this puts on businesses and a lot of the traditional sort of events that you see this time of year that have unfortunately had to be canceled. All the work that all of them are doing around that with the businesses in town and just trying to make Camden or a vibrant place while this is going on, that's the kind of thing that we can get reimbursed through this grant for. The police department is going to be doing an increased number of foot patrols in the downtown area in particular. They're going to be helping business owners to support them with things like enforcement of mask wearing. All of that effort on behalf of the town is reimbursable through this grant. So there's a number of things that are known to us at this point as to what we'll be using this funding for, but there are a lot of opportunities to do creative things with it as well. So, we're kind of looking for opportunities, things like the open air market as they come up. We're still getting feedback from the business owners as the season progresses on different things that they see as opportunities that would be helpful to them and would help make the town a more vibrant place. So we want to be open to that feedback and flexible and able to sort of quickly help them and work to do things that are going to be good for the town. So that's kind of the general gist of what we're doing, and we can talk specifics with you if you have any ideas or thoughts. We're kind of open to everything at this point because we're lucky that through this we do have some flexibility if it falls in sort of those 3 buckets of helping businesses, general sort of like community-based awareness, and also education work.
Audra, the total grant was?
$102,000.
Thank you. Just for the record. Any comments, select board members? Allison?
You have kind of like a rough idea of what you think may already be committed from that amount? Or is that too, is there a large amount of sort of retroactive stuff, or
I see.
how open is it to new ideas, and how much is kind of already in your mind as like, okay, well, we're going to have additional foot patrol for the police department, and we know that's going to be X, Y, or Z amount?
I'd say we're fairly flexible at this point as to what we can spend it on. I don't have like a, a tally or anything, but I would say that we're.
It sounds like what you're saying is we haven't taken a big bite out of it yet.
I'd say that's a fair enough. Like, for example, that lovely signage all over town on the lamppost, that was like a $500, $600 project.
That's good. The labor is a little more intensive, of course, but
yes,
it sounds like we have a fair amount left in this $102,000. But it's also bucketed in certain categories, isn't it, Audra? Isn't the 102 bucketed into various categories of where you can spend the money?
Yes. Yeah.
That's right. Not 102,000 you can spend on new flags or whatever. It has to be bucketed, and I don't remember how that's broken down, but that's another thing we'll have to take a look at as we go forward with it. But it's great. That's a nice chunk of change. Any other questions on the Maine Healthy Grant update? If not, we'll move on to item 11, which is a review of the no parking situation on Route 52 near the ledges. And in this regard, we do have one email from Ms. Jenny Simon, and obviously a Camden resident, one of my neighbors. And I will read it because it's not in the packet. I will read it into the record. Dear honorable select board members of the town of Camden, first, thank you all for your service to our community, especially during these challenging times. I hope this finds all of you well. Second, it's great to see the signs in downtown promoting mask wearing and safe public health practices. Third, thank you for considering today the renewal of our lodging and victular license. While we are sitting out most of the season, we are working towards a healthy, safe 2021 season. Finally, would you please consider restoring parking spaces to the rocks, quote, the rocks / near ledges, quote, alongside Lake Maguntacook on Route 52. For my working family, this is often the only place we have the time to take a quick dip between our various jobs and shifts. The appearance of no parking signs broke our hearts. A little piece of local culture gone. It's the only place we know of with easy public access where one can have some solitude on the lake. Now, in the time of pandemic, more places for socially distant access are needed, not fewer. Thank you for your time and consideration, Ms. Jenny Simon. With that, let's have enter a discussion. Sorry, Allison?
Well, I also have another, I got so many comments about this on just not officially asking them to be read at the select board meeting, but I do have one email that I actually haven't even read in its entirety, but it was very clear she was going to try to log on to the YouTube channel, but wasn't sure if she could do that and really wanted me to read into the record. So if you
go ahead.
If I do that. So this is from Stephanie Farnham, and she says, hello, Ms. McKellar. Could you share my concerns with the select board regarding parking on Route 52 that is on the agenda for tonight's meeting? I will try to attend by YouTube, blah, blah, blah. My name is Stephanie Farnham, and I live on Woodland Road in Camden, which is very close to Route 52. I have lived here my whole life, so I'm very knowledgeable about the parking / swimming issues for this area. When I was younger, 1975 on, there would be people parking all along the mountainside of the road from the boat ramp to the Lincolnville town line so they could swim. The road is posted for 40 miles per hour, but people seem to go much faster than that. If you were driving on the road, you would have to go slower than 40 miles per hour and sometimes stop because of people running across the road or sitting on the guardrails, and the cars sometimes didn't park all the way off the road. So two-way traffic seemed tight to pass by. This was the normal for a long time. Camden police would check on things, especially on weekends. If parking was permitted again, the police would have to constantly be patrolling Route 52. When all these people were swimming, you also had to be careful when operating a watercraft because they would sometimes swim out quite a distance from the shore without a tube or raft or buoy, and it would be hard to see them in the water. There was even a rope swing on the lower section. When the boat ramp on 52 was reversed and reconstructed years ago, many spaces of parking across from the ramp were removed. This did not help the many boaters or swimmers needing parking. So more parking for any reason along 52 has never been thought out very well and is an issue and will continue to be an issue as more people are utilizing these places. Maybe the Maidens Cliff parking lot could be expanded to help parking issues, or the tarred apron under the cliffs could be lined and expanded for parking. Since the COVID-19, people have been parking all the way up Turnpike Hill, Route 52, to climb the mountain and parking from overflow at the boat ramp with trailers. These places are much safer than along the rocks. When the road was repaired just past the boat ramp, there was a small area on the edge of the lake that people used to park and swim from, but the trees grew up and now it's non-existent. Again, no one thought about more parking. As kids, we grew up with lots of people parking and swimming off 52, and it was the normal and never a dull moment. We didn't give a thought about the safety issues it caused, but now as an adult with a small child of my own, I understand all the safety concerns. The other areas I mentioned are safer parking solutions and could be utilized for more things, not just swimming. The town should also clean up and improve the beach areas that the town already has, namely Barrett's Cove, Shirtail Point, Lake Beach, Snowball Pond area, and the park on the river by the bridge. This would provide more places for people to swim. Barrett's Cove needs quite a bit of attention and could have quite an extensive area for people to sit and swim if utilized correctly. This would help the swimming off 52 issue. Barrett's Cove was much nicer when I was a kid. The culvert was not running down the middle of the beach and the bushes were not all grown up along the edges. The float was larger and the swim area was marked off with a larger area to swim. We don't have to spend millions of dollars to make things better at the swim areas, but each year it would be great to add or upgrade something at each swimming place and just keep them cleaned up. I appreciate your time and helping me to get my voice heard. Thank you, Stephanie Farnham.
Thanks, Alice. Thank you.
I've received count, I mean, I posted this on a couple of places on the internet and got sort of a torrent of feedback. So it's an issue people really care about, and access to the lake. I think Audra really summed it up well, kind of in her memo, that you know, it's an issue and balancing all of those users. There's definitely a lot of comments from people wanting the parking restored. A lot of people don't realize that it's already parked. It's already marked as no parking, and so this was interpreted a little bit as something that we were thinking of taking away from them, when really it's not quite like that. But
Right. Myself, I've received over the last year a lot of comments about no parking out on that stretch. I'm not sure exactly. Is there anybody on the select board that feels the no parking thing has a strong reasons for maintaining this no parking restriction universally? Mark?
I don't know enough about it, so I'd like to ask Chief first to, talk about it. I know he had a memo in the packet, but I'd like to hear him discuss it and possibilities of what we could possibly do.
Well, it has been marked no parking up there for as long as I can remember, and I go way back. We have ticketed that area. Like I have said in my memo, it's not an enforcement area that we target, but when we get complaints or if an officer goes out and sees that there's vehicles parked along there, we issue tickets, we've issued warnings. Sometimes we don't get out there to look at it. Making that no parking along there or taking that away from the no parking will lead to just what Ms. Farnham said. I grew up in the area and I commuted for 20 years back and forth there. For about 12 weeks during the summer, it gets down to sometimes impassable, but you can get through. It does slow the traffic down. Vehicles will park from the boat ramp all the way to the town line. Some of them will put themselves in the ditches, but they do hang out into the roadway in quite a few places. And when you have boat trailer traffic going to and from the boat ramp, it does reduce it. My big concern is the unrestricted crossing of people going from vehicles across the road, not so much during the day, but at nighttime after dark. The after dark swimming also in the past created a lot of noise, and we did get complaints of noise. What you should know is under Title 29, if the town decided to pull the parking out of there, the state still has the right, because it's a road they maintain, under Title 29, 2068, Section C, if they deemed that was unsafe, the state could come back in there and put no parking. I believe we could harvest more parking for the boat ramp up towards Route 52 between the boat ramp and Beaucaire. The shoulders are wider there. But my suggestion would be that the town get in touch with Dave Allen from Maine DOT. One, to see what his opinion is, he's the regional engineer, and get his input on making any changes. And to ask him if the town relinquishes the parking there, is the state going to go in and put no parking in there? So if we're going to address it, I think we should address it fully.
Okay. Jeremy, why don't you finish, then go to you, Taylor.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment about the DOT. I think it's probably a good idea. I will say it is good to work with DOT coming from the perspective of what we would like to do. You know, we'd like to save or at least provide some parking in that location, rather than saying, you know, what are you going to do if we pull the parking spaces out? Or we say, you know, we make them available.
Right.
Because they'll just come back and say, we'll just post them. But I think if we approach DOT from the perspective of, we'd like some spaces there, let's do it safely. I think we have a better opportunity to provide some parking there.
Something to chew on. Randy?
Yeah, I'm sure you've all read it in the ordinance. There is a section along there of 4 parking spaces that are, I think it's 1.25 miles back towards Camden from the Lincolnville line. There's signs up there that don't indicate that, but there are no parking signs on both ends of that section. So it is confusing for people.
Right.
And we couldn't find it anywhere in the ordinance, but I remember the discussions over the years that they left 4 parking places there because there were residents out on the island that did not have access for parking. And I
Right.
believe that would have, but it wasn't left specifically just for them.
Right.
So there is 4 spaces there, but you know, I think you could harvest a little more, but I think we ought to really, you know, as Jeremy said, let's look with doing it and doing it right and doing it safe.
Right. Taylor, you had your hand first, then Audra, I'll get to you.
Yeah, I appreciate what Chief Gagné is saying about doing it the right way. I'm a little torn on this. I've heard several comments from people on both sides that, you know, that safety out there should be number one. And I agree that, you know, that can be a scary stretch of road. And if, you know, someone comes along at dusk traveling 40, 50 miles an hour kind of around that curve while a group of people is trying to, all the parking spaces that we're talking about are on the east side of 52, which means to get to the ledges, to jump in the water, someone's going to have to cross that roadway. So that just worries me. If we're going to open that up, that if we don't do it in a calculated way, it's just not safe. I think really practically speaking, we're only talking about maybe 6 or 8 parking spaces.
Probably.
Most of that section on the east side of 52 from Maiden's Cliff parking area to the Lincolnville town line, there's just not enough room to get even a small vehicle, but there's 2 or 3 little turnouts that are dirt where you can fit maybe 2 cars or 3 cars or 4 cars in some of those. So looking at it that way, opening up 6 or 8 more parking spaces in that area isn't going to solve the bigger issue of access to the lake that we seem to be talking about. That being said, I do think that, you know, with the parking space we have at Maiden's Cliff and the very big wide shoulders we have on both sides of the roadway in the Beaucaire Ave and Maiden's Cliff area, if there's a conversation we can have with DOT to do something that maybe makes that more pedestrian friendly, and open that up more, that's right next to the 52 boat launch, which is, you know, if you just go north of that, that's the ledges where people like to jump in. So
right.
I'm totally sympathetic to wanting to give people more access to that area for swimming, but I do think we need to do it in a smart way. And I'm not totally convinced that just opening up those 2 or 3 dirt areas is going to solve the problem without maybe creating more trouble for ourselves.
Audra?
All right, so I asked Dave St. Laurent to reach out to Patrick Adams because I think this is something that really can be folded into a lot of the pedestrian safety discussions that we've been having in that forum that we had back in, I don't even remember what month it was in now, January. It was prior to COVID.
February.
It's February.
Anyway, I don't want to, like, there was a lot of great momentum and great concepts behind that I really don't want to kind of lose sight of the bigger picture. And it can really be applied to this situation. So we reached out to Patrick Adams and asked him what his recommendation would be. And so I think that there's specifically there's a bunch of things. Yes, there's broader public access to Lake McGunnacook, and I think there's a lot of things that we can do about that. There's sort of like short-term things that we can do to fix parking along this stretch of Route 52 and try to open it up a little bit more so we're not limiting access to people, especially the law-abiding people are going to be put off by the no parking signs, and make it a little bit more accessible to them. And then there's some long-term things that we can do in partnership with DOT along that stretch of Route 52. So I'd recommend in the short term, you know, when it comes to parking, usually DOT, as long as they give a lot of latitude to municipalities to enforce and either create or remove parking. So if vehicles are to park behind the fog line, and we can go out along that stretch and determine areas where there is enough space between, you know, where the fog line is and the shoulder is to safely allow for parking. We can put up, you know, some signage along that area saying to watch for pedestrians along that stretch of roadway.
Okay.
You can even have, you know, them be lit sort of signs powered by solar. So that the motorists along that stretch are aware of the fact that, you know, yes, people are going to be parking there and there are going to be people crossing the road. They need to pay attention. We can also put up signs in these areas that we are going to allow for and sort of designate as parking for pedestrians, that this stretch of road is marked as 45 miles per hour, so cross at your own risk. So we're giving both users of that roadway warning of each other and being careful for each other. Right. But I think that, you know, that kind of starts with us going out and determining which of those areas are appropriate to do so, where should the signage go, all of that.
Right.
So, you know, we can do that with signage, and in the long term, and this is something that, you know, Dave St. Laurent and I have been talking about anyway. I think that we might want to consider Route 52, especially along this area, as a good candidate for an MPI with MDOT. So when they're considering doing some road work on Route 52, we're looking at widening the shoulder along that stretch. We're generally in recognition of the fact that, you know, we want pedestrians and cyclists to be able to use that stretch of roadway more safely.
Right.
So, you know, those are some of the things that we want to consider that wrap into some of the broader, longer term strategies that I think that we're all in agreement we need to start pursuing in regards to roadways and safety.
Right. Allison.
What a brilliant summary, Audra. Thank you. I really feel like this does fit in so much, and this corresponding also with a lot of the comments that I got from people, like over 90 different people commented on this. That there were all kinds of suggestions like that, like sometimes just all caps, like traffic calming, exclamation point, and then links to other things. But the state of Maine is involved in this whole big campaign that's called Slow Maine Down. DOT was on Maine Calling today, and last week it was the Bicycle Coalition of Maine, and we held that pedestrian forum. But there have been more pedestrian accidents in Maine, and there's a ton of enthusiasm right now to try to figure out basically just like getting people to slow down. And there was one thing that seemed kind of universal in the comments that I received was a feeling like, I think it's 40 miles an hour for that stretch there, but that was too fast. And I recognize that that's a state road and that we don't get to choose that, but it's, no matter what we do, and I know it doesn't always work to slow people down, but it seems like it would make sense to, as part of our correspondence with DOT, to ask them to look at that speed limit. So
Right.
I guess I would like to see it out of our ordinance, that parking is specifically prohibited there, because the thing is, it's still continuing. People are still parking there some, and it's just basically rolling the dice. I've talked to friends that have gotten ticketed, and then I actually went out there to take some pictures to show people, and this guy came running up with his wife, and they were being really responsible, but they were really worried that I was there trying to document the fact that they were violating the no parking. And it took me a while to explain like that I wasn't going to get his license plate in any of this, but that was at a place where there really is enough space to pull over. It reminds me a lot of when I went to California recently, and there were these beautiful views at the edge of a cliff, and they knew that people want desperately to just look at that view. Sometimes it's not even people that want to swim. They just want to be able to pull over and look. And so anyway, I would fully support what Audra suggested, and also support removing that specific prohibition from our ordinance, because it's also, first of all, those 4 spaces are nowhere to be found. I mean, I tried to find them, and going with an approach that's more like Audra's, but I don't see why it needs to be in our parking ordinance.
Thanks, Allison. Taylor.
Yeah, question and a comment. Audra, do we need to, is this something that we can decide at the select board level, or does there need to be a hearing to be had to remove this from the ordinance?
So the traffic code is one area where you actually do have a lot of authority over it. Yeah, it would need to be noticed that you are going to make the change, but you are able to, formally, make notice, have a public.
It would need to be noticed before we make the vote to make it happen.
Yes. Yeah.
So my comment then, I guess suggestion is I totally agree with Allison that your summary that you gave there was brilliant. And I think it's just perfect. And in the short term, I'm very comfortable with the idea, particularly if we're putting that really clear lighted signage out there, so that when people are coming around those curves, they know to expect pedestrians, and vice versa. So I guess my suggestion would be, it'd be great if we could try to make this work for the remainder of the summer. For the meeting on the 21st, if we could notice it for the 21st, and then if you are able to come to us with some sort of summary of the short-term plan, what the spaces are where it work and what the signage would look like, so we feel comfortable just making it happen in 2 weeks. I think that would be a great way to do it.
Just to insert into what Audra said and others, what I heard was Audra, Chief, Dave Saint Laurent, and anybody else you choose to bring to the table to evaluate that stretch and come up with ideas, but it also needs to be a discussion with MDOT. So that has to be in that process someplace. You don't want to surprise them with something that they may, it's unlikely that would backfire from them, but we want to inform them. I'm not sure about the 21st. I'd love it was the 21st. I agree with Taylor. If we can do it this year, it'd be great. But that's the process I heard from you, Audra. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that's kind of the first simplest thing that you can do that's all in the control of the town of Camden, is making that change to the traffic code. Okay. And in parallel with that, me and other town staff can work with DOT on, actually identifying areas where it would be appropriate to allow parking, and where we can place signage and all of that.
All right. Okay.
If it doesn't happen by the 21st, that's fine. No, but if we can work in parallel, I think the short term and long term seems to work well together.
Yeah, I think we could do the ordinance thing on the 21st, but we have to make sure we notice it properly. That could happen. I wasn't saying we couldn't do that. We probably should do that anyway. But the other process is going to take a little bit longer. I was really responding to your point about getting people into the water ASAP, which I'd like to see also, because I just have this feeling that I'm a big advocate of safety, especially in the roadways, based on my background. But on the other hand, the public doesn't have enough access to a beautiful lake, from my feeling. And I think I'm sure they can find some stretches of, as Chief suggested, or you suggested, Audra, where you can possibly park most all of the car over the fog line, which by the way, for everybody should know, the fog line is the light line on any given street. Sometimes there's a shoulder over the fog line, but in this case, there is not, which is the same thing with Route 1 North here. So I think that process makes sense. We'll take a look at how fast we can get the ordinance change to the select board with proper notice and do it ASAP. And then follow the parallel process you mentioned, Audra, with town staff. And because I totally agree, I wouldn't ask MDOT for their recommendations. I would bring them, this is what we want to do. And they'll work with you.
They're already sort of primed for this, and Patrick Adams he'll help us out with, moving forward with this and making sure that it dovetails into the pedestrian safety work that we're already doing. So that'll be helpful because, you'll find like in any, like in any larger organization, the sort of regional engineer is going to have a very different sort of consideration than like Patrick, who's your multimodal guy. So,
right.
I mean, Patrick's already been at 2 Town of Camden, like public events. And I mean, it's all part of a larger process, and he was outstanding.
Yes, you're right. You mentioned one of the key things, that signage thing you mentioned about, that can be a tremendous safety help to the crossing Route 52 thing that you may have mentioned in this discussion.
And I think the key thing with that, and it also fits in with the Pedestrian Safety Forum's broader goals, is it's not just the responsibility of the motorists, but also the pedestrians to make sure that they're watching out for one another and being safe. So that's kind of, I think, a goal in all of this is that shared responsibility.
We also don't necessarily, so, some people are saying that crosswalks make them actually nervous there. Mm-hmm. And for me, I kind of agree, because it's sometimes it's better when things actually look dangerous, I guess. The idea of putting a crosswalk in different places, it's kind of like we're leading people to like this place to go down to the lake. It's not for anybody that's ever swam there. It's not for everyone. It is a little bit dangerous. And so we, something like at your own risk, or this isn't like a Town of Camden designated swimming area that we suggest everybody go to, but for the people that feel that they understand the risks and want to make that choice, lots of things, not any different than the toboggan chute, really. They can be allowed.
Well, that's where MDOT comes in. MDOT comes in there because they have specific regulations that are tied to your point, Allison, speed limit with respect to crosswalks. And that's kind of the stuff you'll be discussing with MDOT when you have this is what we'd like to do kind of thing. It sounds great. It sounds great. Thank you so much. Moving on then to the item 11, which is the renewal of our town manager's contract. The contract is in the package that we have here. Are there any comments from the select board or any questions you have on the amended agreement?
I see she's not allowed to live in the school district and not down to Camden.
Okay, we can discuss that, but Mark had his hand up first.
I think that's reasonable.
I know. We'll come back to that, but Mark, you had your hand up first.
I was just going to say I had a couple issues with the earlier agreement, which have been answered. I emailed you all. That's been answered already, so I'm fine with what we have.
Okay. Yeah, Allison, that's one of the changes that was made, Allison. It was the agreement to live within the school district towns is currently the way this agreement's drafted. That was your question?
Yeah.
Statement. That was your statement, not question.
Not union, but
yeah.
There used to be language that said without special permission, and I don't know if you've I can't remember, is that language still in there? We might want to add it in, like, just in case she does need to move somewhere that's not
within the school district.
Well, yeah, it used to say that the town manager had to live in Camden unless the select board gave like approval to not live in Camden. I can't remember. Does it say live in the school district unless the select board gives you approval to live somewhere else?
I'm looking at that right now.
Because I mean, things happen, and
that's very true.
The manager may reside within the town of Camden or within the 5-town school district in her discretion.
So to answer your question, it doesn't say that could be amended. But I think in my mind, in a contract format, the mutual agreement, well, we could change it now or just wait for it.
I mean, just,
We could add that, Allison. That's I don't think Audra obviously wouldn't have a problem with that.
No, that's fine with me.
I don't think we're gonna get sued if she moves to union, or something, but it just seems just like it's something that could come up, but.
No, that's a good point. Taylor, where did you find, what paragraph is that in?
That's in paragraph 12, section B.
Manager may reside within town within 5 districts in her discretion unless approved otherwise by the select board. Is that what we're talking about, Allison? Yeah,
Sure.
I have no problem. That's a good idea. I think that's fine. I think it's implicit. However, I was going to say that's implicit that we could do that, but if for some reason, I don't know why she would, Audra could, it's her contract, she could refuse to make that change. So let's put it in there. I think it's a good idea.
I'm
Other-
comfortable with that.
Agreed.
Other comments?
Like, we don't want some future select board to be like, you can't, we might not get reelected, and then all of a sudden,
Right.
what
Right.
needs union and can't.
And obviously, just for the record, this is a 3-year contract for the public and understand this commences 7 days ago on July 1st, 2020 and goes through June 30th, 2023 by our regulations for length of contracts. Other comments? Mark, you had your hand up for a second there, I thought.
I was just gonna say I'm fine with it, and I'm willing to make a motion to approve the contract
With that one change to
with the one change
12B,
to,
12B.
regarding residency.
I just have one other question. The number that for salary that was in there, is that the number that is with the 3% COLA from last? Is that was just staying on the track? That's not an additional.
No, the amount is her salary on June 30th plus 3% for July 1st.
Gotcha.
So that's the according to the contract, Audra's increases will be those that are approved by the town for town employees, period. But yes, to answer your question, it is I think the last time we talked about a different number, but somehow we did a miscalculation until Jody straightened me out and we added the 3% correctly.
But,
Which
and
is-
then we are going to pay up to $4,000 for the program.
Yes, that executive MBA program, we threw in a maximum of $4,000 because that's the amount that was in professional development.
Oh, okay. So that's not professional development plus an additional $4,000.
Not in my mind.
That's just accounting for what
That's
we had.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Audra and we discussed it. I believe Audra can make a comment. The 4,000 is probably not going to be needed for your MBA. I'm sorry, for your executive program you're proposing to take next year sometime.
Yeah, from I've talked with a few managers in other communities in Maine that have done this same program, and typically there's a scholarship that covers that cost, and it's a very small, if any, contribution from the municipality that they work in. Most of the time, it's just the time off that they get in order to do the
Right.
course.
Okay. Any other comments, Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify on the raises that Audra would get. It was her suggestion that she only received the same raise that the other town employees do, which I thought was rather amazing. So it keeps her on the same path that everyone else is. And the kind of year we have is the kind of year for everybody. So there's no separation there. And I thought that was an admirable suggestion, and that's what's in the contract. And I wanted people to know
Makes it
that.
easy if I recommend a 0%, I'm
Yeah, let's not go down that road. Any
well,
other-
sometimes it's going to have to happen, and I just want my fate tied to everyone else's in that case.
I agree with that completely.
Mhm.
Other comments? Not hearing, do I hear a motion to accept with one modification, the town manager's contract?
I already made the motion. We're looking for a second.
Okay,
Oh, second.
okay. Any further discussion? Jeremy, you're waving your hand. Do you want to?
Yes, I'm saying good night. Have a great evening.
Oh, okay, thank you. I thought
Yeah,
you wanted to say,
sorry.
oh.
Jeremy's like, wait 1 second here.
Wait a minute. Who's the town manager? Okay, roll call vote. Taylor,
Aye.
Jenna,
Aye.
Allison,
I,
Mark.
Aye, and congratulations and thank you, Audra.
Yes, Audra, you have 3 more years minimum out of 30. Thank you very much. And Bob, I also, for the record, that's 5-0. Thank you. With that, we are at a point where we.
Oh, sorry, Bob. I was hoping maybe I could jump in because I didn't
Of course you
speak
can jump in.
at the beginning to do a manager's report.
Oh.
And there's a couple of things that I wanted to bring up with the board, and it's just 3 small things. So we have been asked by Maine Municipal Association to nominate someone from the Legislative Policy Committee. So I just wanted to ask the board if anybody here is interested in doing that.
hold on, what was that? Sorry.
The MMA Legislative Policy Committee. So the way that it works is that we get two people that we can nominate, and they need to be from our district, and our district is basically all of, Knox County. So we get to nominate, one person.
Oh,
What kind of a time commitment is that? Probably as much as you want it to be, just like anything else, but
There you
like what?
go.
I think, oh, shoot, I had it up that said, like the amount of time. Or it's like, I am so sorry. I just had this up because I knew someone was going to ask that question.
I've always kind of wanted to do this, but aren't you you're pretty good. Aren't you our representative now?
I've actually never been on the Legislative Policy Committee. I am your MMA, that like the town's voting
Right.
member.
this is basically a committee, or if you will, of the MMA that deals with legislative interaction between MMA and Augusta. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I know what it is, but
I didn't
I want to do. I mean, I would do it if nobody else wants to.
do it.
Are we running for is it like your? Didn't we vote on this before? Is it Jay Filer now or something?
I believe it's Jay and Bill Post, or maybe, yeah, I forget.
Yeah, but it's just we're looking for a potential nominee. Is that correct? And the process to nominate that person is to basically just fill in the blank, the person's name.
Yep, I can fill in the form on your behalf. Just, yeah, whoever would like to do it.
I'd put Allison's name in.
Yeah, I have to say, I'll make a motion that we suggest
Nominate.
McKellar for the position.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
I'm just curious if it's the kind of thing where it then turns into an election where I'm like running against somebody. I mean, I don't really.
I think,
I'm
yeah,
not trying to push Bill Post out or.
I actually think that might be part of the process. Is
Oh,
they get however many forms that they get from people in our Senate district, and then it gets sent around to all the municipalities to vote on. I've just never seen more than 2 nominees, so it's usually like,
yep.
names you have to choose from, and
Yeah, it's 2 votes for 2 people.
Well, if I have to.
But
Yeah,
I found some more information. It says that Legislative Policy Committee activities require a time commitment of approximately 10 hours a month during the legislative sessions during the first 4 months of the calendar year, which includes attendance at the monthly meeting and contact with other communities and legislators in the district as issues arise. And it is the names and brief bios of all municipal officials properly nominated will appear on the LPC ballot, which will be distributed on July 15th.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a vote. And before Ellison changes his mind, I'm going to call for a roll call vote from Mark.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Jenna.
Aye.
And Bob is aye. If you would love to vote for yourself, Allison, please do so.
I have to vote for myself. That's.
Well, you have to, right?
I don't do the thing that Lincolnville does where you abstain if you're voting.
I totally agree with you. You
Thank
stand.
you.
I'm gonna vote for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. I think it's great.
I'm glad that you're putting your hat in the ring. I think
Yeah,
that's
me
a
too.
great thing, Allison.
Me too. Me too. With that, then anything else, Audra, on your manager's report? You said there were a couple of things.
Yes, so I just want to let everyone know that on July 14th, Election Day, the town office will be closed to the public because all of us are going to be working at the polls.
And since we have 1,600 absentee ballots, I'm wondering how heavy the polls are really going to be.
You never know. So yeah, like even, me, Jody, Janice, all of the people out front, all the Opera House people, we're all going to be working all day. Holly, Beth. So there's a lot of town staff that'll be manning the polls all day. For one, I'm very excited about it because I have never had the opportunity before.
Okay, cool. Great.
Right,
Anything
we
else?
haven't had the opportunity as a select board either, not even to set up the booths. If everybody.
Mark, did you have a question for Audra?
I have a question for Audra. Do we know how many absentee ballots have been returned so far?
I do not know the answer to that question.
I don't either.
Is it a lot, or are people getting it and they're like, maybe not?
There are two plastic containers that are about the size of like 2 feet by 18 inches, and they're both full of ballots. So I don't know what that number is. But
So Bob, tell us, how many does that do your formula?
Didn't you do the
Like,
little
that's the number
little
of
guesses at the
jelly
grocery
beans.
store where you had to guess?
Right.
it's 300 or 400. But anyway, yeah, and the staff is working real hard. You can see it in their faces. I know you've seen it, Audra, and you, Jody. They're just it's sorting a lot of paper. It's
But we don't count it yet, right?
sorry.
There's no counting that happens until.
We're actually counting absentee ballots this coming Saturday.
Correct. The Saturday before election, they count the ballots in the machine and then just add that to the machine count on Tuesday, the 14th. So I believe Saturday evening, I forget the time that Katrina told me they will have counted by machine, those that can be counted by machine because the school board is not, they will be counted by Saturday evening. But they won't be published.
Now, are you then, I'm sure there are rules about being like bound to secrecy, and you're not allowed to share, whoever has access to those numbers isn't allowed to share, like, well, it's not looking good for Bob, or like.
Exactly, because
Allison, or.
yes, there are a lot of rules since we had a presidential election when they broadcast all the East Coast votes, and they insisted it affected the California vote because of the 3-hour time difference. People getting negative, not going to polls. But I believe that your comment about secrecy is correct. What Katrina told me. Pussycat.
Like the crazy cat lady over here.
Yeah, it was a black one, by the way. Anyway, with that, anything else, Audra? Is that it?
I do want to let everyone know I'm on a quest, an absolute sort of journey to replace 3 utility poles on Mechanic Street.
Thank you.
I am making it my solemn duty to get this done. I will let you know how it goes. It's involved a lot of me tracking down contacts at utilities and making them very uncomfortable, relentlessly stalking them by going onto their business's website and guessing at email addresses. I'll let you know the outcome of that, and hopefully that
And maybe what you learned along the way too. You could give like a presentation. I think it would be interesting for everybody to know like which wire is which. And
oh yeah, and I'll have the master list of contacts and who they are and what they do and their email addresses and phone numbers, and I'll share them with our municipal counterparts in other places. And
yeah.
Ooh,
Polls, one of the most convoluted things.
death threats are coming her way.
That's
Audra,
great.
if you need help from the investigative reporters on those contacts,
Ooh.
just contact me and Jenna. We'll help you out.
yes,
Definitely,
my-
we're good at that.
I'll pull up my old black book.
There you go. Thank you.
bringing this
Thank
up
you.
because I wanted the community to know that I have not ignored the fact that there are wires dangling down into Mechanic Street. And they're just as frustrating for all of us as they are for you. And We're not forgetting about them. We're not giving up on it, but it takes a lot of time.
And the polls don't belong to us.
And the
Yeah.
polls don't belong to us.
They don't. They're one of the most, the biggest black art of road construction is poles.
Mm.
It always has been and always will, because of so many entities that rent spaces on.
It's amazing. I can't even, the things I've learned.
Mark,
I think we're ready to make a motion to adjourn as select board members and reconvene as wastewater commissioners.
you are correct.
All right.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Taylor,
Aye.
Jenna,
Aye.
Allison,
Hi.
Mark,
Aye.
Bob, aye. Thank you very much. And we are now convened as wastewater commissioners, wherein we have one item to approve the quarterly billings and certificate of commitment of sewer bills for January 17th, 2020 to April 16, 2020 in the amount of $306,569.02. Mark,
So moved.
It's so-
Second.
any discussion?
Just my normal one, that it's just crazy because everybody's already been billed.
Second.
I totally agree. It seems like a rubber stamp thing. That's a bit of a,
A retroactive rubber stamp, but,
yeah, it's just, but, well,
yep, I'm in favor. I already paid.
I understand, understood. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Mark,
Aye.
Taylor,
Aye.
Jenna,
Aye.
Allison,
Hi.
Bob, same kind of laugh, aye. Okay, with that,
That's the bottom of it.
right, 5-0, and with that, we can adjourn as wastewater commissioners.
I make a motion, we adjourn as wastewater commissioners and looking forward to reconvening on April, what is it, July 21st?
July 21st.
Same members on the board as we have now. Have a great week next week, especially Bob and Allison.
Yeah, well, let's hope the weather stays good. Anyway, I hope we get some summer soon. It would be nice. But anyway, with that said, we're adjourned. Thank you all so much. Great meeting.
Thanks.
Night, everyone.
Night, Jen.
And,
Good night.